Greetings, SEOs. Today we're going to talk about how to do a brief, simple, but effective market evaluation for SEO. A lot of times when we kick off with clients, they ask, how long is this going to take? And our answer is typically, it depends. But the other way we answer this is 3 to 6 months, we should see results, something like that. But in all honesty, that's pretty arbitrary. How do we know it's going to take 3 to 6 months? Maybe that's what it takes on average, but there can be a lot of lost context and inaccuracy within that average. So what I'm going to show you today is a quick, easy method for grabbing some quantifiable numbers, some measurable metrics that we can use as benchmarks, goals, things to aspire to. And it's going to give us good context so we can forecast more accurately. First, we're going to benchmark what we are up against. And this isn't an absolute score or anything, but it's basically going to tell us, is there a small gap between us and the competition? Or is it a really large gap? Or are we kind of neck and neck to where if we make improvements with an SEO campaign, we can start to pull away from the pack? Now, one important concept is that you don't have to catch up to compete. So let's say we're looking at a local business and a couple of the competitors have somewhere around 200 reviews and we only have like 20. Okay, so they literally have 10 times more than we do. It seems hopeless, and you can make it sound hopeless to your client, which you do not want to do. Because the truth is, you don't have to catch up to them. You don't have to get exactly 200 reviews to start being competitive. And honestly, to start out competing them. We're going to fight this war on multiple fronts. And if we have a big gap, then that just means there's a bit more runway on that particular goal. We're going to work toward it, but it's going to be more of a long-term project. Whereas some of the smaller gaps will be things that we can attack more immediately, more quickly. Those are gaps we probably could close entirely. So here are some of the things that we're going to look at. These are some of the numbers we're going to try to grab to understand what the gaps are and where we stand. So the first one is going to be authority, and I'm going to keep this simple. We're just going to use Ahrefs domain rating for that. We're also going to look at the number of reviews. So in this example, I'm going to focus on local businesses. You can totally do this exercise for a national brand where, reviews and other local signals aren't relevant. You just take those metrics out and you focus on other things. So we're going to count number of reviews. We're going to look at social strength. So we're basically going to look at some social profiles, and you can focus on one or many, but we're going to essentially look at their followers to get an idea of the presence there. And then we're going to look at the size and the scope of the websites against each other. And the numbers I'm going to grab here are the number of ranking keywords and the number of pages on the site. So let's talk about the first metric. In my exercise, I'm going to look at domain rating and referring domains. If you wanted to take it one step further, you could also take a look at velocity. But really, the domain rating and the referring domains, those are quick, easy numbers we can grab. We are going to look at Google reviews. And in this example, I'm just going to focus on Google reviews. But if you did want to expand that, it's a good idea when you're taking a look at a local client to look at some of the other third-party review platforms to check for presence there. You can also look at industry relevant sites. So they're review sites, but maybe they're not the big players, but they have high relevance. That can be a good thing to do. But the quickest way to do this is just to look at Google reviews. Like I said, we're going to look at social strength. And one way to do it is just kind of look at what the most popular platform is for each business. So maybe your client is super popular on Facebook. Note how many followers they have there. And then maybe a competitor is super popular on YouTube, and you could note how many subscribers they have. You can do it that way, or you can kind of aggregate all the platforms together. I usually just kind of get a loose number as I look at the platforms. I'll say, okay, they have about 2,000 on Facebook. They have about 200 on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. Just do the quick math in my head and note the number. then I move on to the next site. How big is their footprint? We're going to look at ranking keywords, and we're going to look at the number of site pages just to get an idea of how wide a net they're casting, how big a site, how much content they have, and that they're publishing. I just think these two numbers can be at least directionally useful. Now, I will say that doesn't necessarily mean that the competitor is performing better or getting more leads, okay? Because a lot of that could be irrelevant. What if a lot of their pages were about topics that were way outside of what their business sells? That wouldn't really be helping them. But I will say overall, these are, as I said, directionally helpful. So we're going to count these. And I already mentioned this, that if you do have a national client, you just adjust your methodology. Domain rating, referring domain number, still pertinent. Number of ranking keywords, number of site pages. I mean, a lot of this is super relevant. Just maybe the review thing won't be. And you can either just leave that out or you could replace it with another metric. All right. And then what we're going to finally do, and we're going to do this live together, is we're going to turn the gaps into a timeline. So we're going to size it and we're going to do some math. I've actually got a spreadsheet that does the math for you. So you just plug in your numbers and then you get some estimates and even some timelines that you could discuss with clients. I will say I'm not a huge fan of focusing on timelines when it comes to SEO. And this is why. I think far more relevant is to focus on progress. How much work have we done within a time frame? It doesn't make sense to me to check in on things just because 6 months have passed. It's more relevant to look at what work have you accomplished in that 6 months? Have you been publishing consistently? Has the client been quick and timely on approvals? Those are the things you should be focusing on, because those actions are the things that make a difference. They're the things that make your graph go up and to the right. So timelines are kind of arbitrary without action and knowing what kind of progress you've been making. But I will say they can be relevant if you say 6 months of consistent action. That, to me, that kind of qualifier at the end there makes the 6 months mean something. So this does give you timelines, but I will warn you, don't speak arbitrarily to clients about timelines. You really want to emphasize that we need to be taking action within those timeframes. And this is a little bit about how the timeline equations work. Basically, I've made some estimates here, and you can adjust these, by the way, if you have a different opinion of how many of these things are realistic to expect each month. But reviews, we're going to say we could reasonably get 4 reviews per month, okay, on the lower end. Referring domains, if we have a backlink program happening, then we could reasonably expect to get about 2 per month if we're lucky. I know that one can be tough. Domain rating. Now, this one I was maybe a little too aggressive on, because moving up 1 point per month is actually a lofty expectation. So you can feel free to adjust that if you want. But if you're getting some high authority, high relevance links, then it's a possibility. Content pages, let's go for at least 2 published per month. And then ranking keywords, if we are publishing twice a month and we're getting some backlinks, we should expect to see about 20 keywords or so every month, okay? And we need this kind of pace associated with each one of these metrics that we're going to benchmark, because it helps us do a little bit of math and expect how long it might take to close a gap. And this is the equation that's going to be running in the spreadsheet we're going to use. How many months something will take equals your target, so where you want to get to, minus where you currently are. That's going to give you the gap, divided by the monthly pace that I just showed you on the slide prior to this. That's what's going to get us our projections. And we're going to do an example together, but this one is just one that I made up. And you can see referring domains, client is 28, the target is 40. So that's going to take about 4 months to close that. And then you can see some other gaps for the other metrics. One of the gaps is 7 months. So actually, it kind of gives us a few shorter term things to shoot for, like domain rating, ranking keywords, and referring domain number, because those are all within 4 months or so. And then we've got like the longer term track for reviews at 7 months. And what you want to do, I mean, this is definitely worth talking about, because sometimes you're going to do this exercise and there's definitely going to be some numbers that look very daunting. Like, I could never close that gap. If you're in a situation where the gap is huge, here are some suggestions. Number one, lower the target, go after longer tail niche keywords where the competition isn't so fierce. Pretty much every website I've ever worked on, there is a keyword territory where they can compete. They are able to rank. I've almost never run into a website that just can't find a pocket of success somewhere. And then once you get in somewhere, you can start to build from there. All right. So remember that and make that clear to your client if the gap is huge. The next thing is, let's lead with the fronts that we can win now. So go for those smaller gaps and those shorter timelines first, and then let them know that the bigger gaps are just going to be a longer parallel track. Now let's do the exercise together. Here is my market evaluation template. This is a very simple market evaluation. You can get as complicated as you want with this exercise, but my goal is usually not to overcomplicate anything. Let's just get some numbers. Let's see where we stand. Let's understand some timelines, get a strategy together, and get to work. I'm also going to share this with you. If you want this template, then just drop me a comment and I will link you to it. Here's the local business we're going to work with. Plumber in Austin, Texas is what I've searched. And when you start your exercise, just go to your client's homepage and find the primary keyword and go ahead and search it. All right, so I'm just imagining I'm working on a plumber in Austin, Texas, their website. We're going to pick Beyond Wow as our client. And let's see what the first thing to benchmark is. It's domain rating. Awesome. So I'm going to open up their website in a new tab. And I'm just going to use the other two sites in the map pack as their competitors that we're going to benchmark. So let's open them too. And I'm going to use my Ahrefs Chrome extension to get a quick look at their domain rating. It's a little bit small here, but I can see it's a 25. So let's put it in. 25. Now let's see what the competitors are. So here's our first one. Radiant Plumbing is a 34. And then Reliant, almost the same name, is a 35. Wow, super similar. All right, so let's just note those, 34 and 35. Now what I can do here is I can change these columns as well to the actual names, but I'm not going to do that just for this example. And you can see I'm just doing 2 competitors. You could do 3 if you want. And our math is working great. I'm getting an average here for the competitors. I'm getting the pack floor, so the lowest competitor number, which is a 34. So the gap is 9, and it looks like it's going to take about 9 months to close. And again, I totally get it. That could sound completely ridiculous. I've actually personally seen one domain rating point take up to 12 months to budge. These are all changeable pace numbers if you want to change those, but this is just what I'm going for. Referring domains. Okay, so for that one, I'm actually going to toss this into Ahrefs. So I'm going to grab Beyond Wow here. Let's go to Ahrefs, drop them in. Let's see how many referring domains we got. Okay, 461. So let's get that in. Great. And now let's look at the competitors as well. Let's toss this in. And I hope this isn't too tedious. I hope this is helpful watching me do it live. I know a lot of people like to see that so they can see all the little details of what someone's doing. Let's get the last one in. Boom. And we get 626. So you can see the competitors are kind of really close to each other, and we definitely have a gap. Let's look what it is. 165 referring domains. So we got some backlink building to do, and you can see the months to close is quite large. Okay. But that's how it goes sometimes. Now we got review count. This one we can grab so quickly. Client is 2,500 versus 17,000 and 2,900. Okay. So let's see if I can remember those. 2,500, 17,000. Wow. And then 2,900. Okay. Luckily, the target is focused on the pack floor. We've got a gap of about 400 reviews. Still super significant, but nothing we can't catch up on with a dedicated review campaign. Now you can get the average rating as well, and I think you should record that, but I'm just going to skip it for now for the sake of time and the fact that is one that we don't have like a pace for, so it's not going to go into the equation of like projections at the end. Now let's look at ranking keywords. So this is another one that we can use Ahrefs for. So let me copy this. I'll keep Ahrefs open, by the way, so we can do this quicker next time. But ranking keywords is 237. So let me go ahead and mark that for the client. And I'm also going to do site pages really quick while I have this open for our client. And all I do is come down here, click organic pages, and kind of see where they're at. Ahrefs has definitely not been as accurate lately with this, but since we're using the same tool for all three sites, we're just going to say it's directionally accurate, not numerically. So about 40 pages, let's mark that. Great. And let's do the same thing for Radiant. So I'll go here, and this is one I'll keep open as well, so we don't have to reopen that. Okay, 523 keywords ranking with 128 pages. So 523 and 128. Interesting. Okay, and let's look at the last example. This is Reliant, 1,300 keywords with 117 pages. 1,300, 117. Now that is quite interesting. A ton more ranking keywords with fewer site pages than Radiant. So that's kind of interesting. And this is what this exercise can sometimes do. It gives you little things to go and investigate. I want to learn more about why that is. How are they being so effective with so few pages? All right, so we got those gaps. Let's see what we got. We got some 10 months to close and 26 months to close. Now, the last one is social following. And what I usually do for that one, I think we're done with Ahrefs, so I'll close these. What I usually do is I jump right down to the footer because that's normally where social profiles are linked. And I go ahead and I start opening each one. I'm just going to skip LinkedIn because it's probably a company page. And like those don't typically do great on LinkedIn. Okay, but let's take a look here. 2,600 followers on Facebook. Instagram, we get 944. And then YouTube subscribers, just 169. So they definitely have the biggest presence on Facebook, and I could note that if I wanted to. I won't do it for this example because, again, we're not projecting any kind of pace or anything here, but you could if you do social media for your client and you did want to track that. All right, so let's look at what we got here. Here are the projections like overall. So the short-term action, the plan of attack is 9 to 26 months are going to be the fastest fronts. And we really want to start attacking the backlink gap, all right, is what this tool is suggesting. Longer term, we've got 67 months, and we want to be attacking things like reviews, okay, because we have quite a deficit there. So that's your market projection. We know that backlinks and reviews are going to be a big part of this. And honestly, when I look at it, ranking keywords and just pages published are another standout to me. This second competitor here, what were they, Radiant or Reliant? I can't remember. But they have a lot of ranking keywords with not a ton of pages. And maybe I read that wrong, but that's something I want to look into. And obviously content is going to be a big push here. Okay, so that is a way to do a simple market research exercise for SEO so you know what you're up against so that you can make more reasonable projections. You got to know where the client stands and what lines of attack you're going to set forth with your SEO strategy. That's something you can do in minutes, and I think it gives a lot more context to your work. Hope that was useful. Give the video a like if it was, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to hear from you in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.